Keep an eye on.
This is on the missing voices, right?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can we all please take a seat? We have a lot of space in here, so please sit down so we can start.
Because there's one my minister was supposed to attend. This is not yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can we all please take a seat? That is serious echo, like 5 minutes after the fact. Please, can we address that so it doesn't happen again? Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for staying back to attend our panel discussion. Unfortunately, we're running behind schedule, but we really appreciate the fact that
After
okay. Hello. Okay, it's working now. So if that continues, I'll just speak without the microphone. I'm sure you can all hear me. So my name is Yinka Babalola. I'm the country director for the International Budget Partnership in Nigeria. And I'd like to welcome you to this very important panel discussion today. Especially the most marginalized, are involved in decisions on how revenues are raised, budgets are funded and implemented, and all fiscal decisions are properly accounted for. And if you're paying attention to what I'm saying, that means that we cover every aspect of the public financial management cycle, from the point of raising revenues to the point of accounting for how those revenues are spent. And because our goal is to make it work for everyone, our focus is on marginalized communities, of which I'm sure most of you agree that women, people with disabilities are amongst the marginalized. And so we work with community-based organizations, social movements in Nigeria. So I have trust issues. Okay. Yeah, because it's very disconcerting hearing my voice played back. Hello. Can you hear me? No.
Sound check 1 2. Sound check 1 2.
Thank you very much. So I hope this will work. Okay, so essentially we try to focus on marginalized persons, people who tend to be pushed to the fringes of society, to make sure that they are involved in decision making on how those revenues are spent and allocated, because essentially we know that it's the job of government to serve the people. And so we work with these community-based organizations and social movements to advocate for better allocation of resources that reflect the needs of the marginalized, and at the end of the day delivers goods and services to them. So for me, to me, this is the most important session today. Yes, I am biased. It's our session, right? Because every other session, they're going to be talking about policies, they're going to be talking about how goods and services are delivered. And if we don't raise enough revenues and ensure that the decisions we make on how those revenues take into account the people that we're trying to reach, then everything we're doing is moot. So that's why I think this is an extremely important session. And so for this session, we have brought together a variety of voices. If you look at the panel, they've taken off that flyer, you can see that we have a variety of people that are coming, basically helping to amplify the voices of the grassroots, people that work in government, people that work for development agencies. And we've done this so that we can hear from multiple perspectives. And as we go into this session, I would like us to come to it with an open mind. And I'm speaking to the panelists as well, because sometimes we tend to look at things from our perspective, the things we have done, the efforts we've put out, but then it's good to listen to other voices so that we can have a holistic view of what's happening. And I'm sure you all agree with me that, we talk a lot about gender and inclusion. There's some buzzwords around gender and inclusion. We talk about gender responsive budgeting, gender-based budgeting, but do we really see that happening in reality? I'm hoping that with this discussion, we will come up with some practical approaches we can take to ensuring that the voices of the marginalized are included in decisions on public finance. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to get reports from every nook and cranny of the country and every perspective on how we can make sure that the impact of public spending is felt by people in the furthest communities in Nigeria. So I would like to say thank you once again for attending our panel discussion, and I look forward to what will be a robust conversation. Before I go, I will enjoin the panelists. If you look around this room, you see a lot of young faces. So please try and stay away from the jargon and make it as simple as possible so that everybody can participate effectively in this session. Thank you. Over to you, Lillian.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good afternoon. I don't know if to apologize or that apology will come from PIC much later, but we're really happy to have you here. And of course, all protocols duly observed. Today we have gathered to talk about the missing voices in public finance. The missing voices in public finance. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no better time to talk about this topic other than now, given, the unprecedented waves of challenges that continues to demand our attention globally. And in Nigeria, we have seen these things happen firsthand. The funding cuts, the foreign aid is gradually declining, increasing debt burden, and the shrinking civic space. And now we're not even talking about the challenges of poverty, the challenges of, climate change, and the rising inequality. So you will agree with me that now more than ever, it's important that governments prioritize what they put the scarce available resources into. So at IBP, we believe that fiscal priorities are not neutral, right? Every allocation is a choice. Every omission is a statement. And so what can we say about Nigeria's fiscal priority? If we take a look at our budget document, can we say that it is a true reflection of the interests, priorities, and values of our society? And if our answer is no, then the question we need to ask will be, in whose interest are the fiscal decisions? Who are those calling the shots? Who are those setting these priorities? Who decides what is being funded and what is not? Okay, so these priorities cannot and must not be decided by the government alone. Neither can it be decided by just a few elites, right? So there are people who must be brought into this conversation, whose voices we consistently, continually ignore. And if we're serious about maximizing the little resources we have, then we must ensure that these resources are invested in ways that truly serve our people. The slides, please. Please keep changing the slides. Thank you. So who are these missing voices, you may like to ask? So one of them, we have the rural women farmers. We have the rural communities. We have persons with disabilities. We have the young people whose voices do not make it, into the fiscal decisions. And until we democratize public finance, our budgets will continue to answer to power and not to the people. So far, all around the countries, sub-Saharan African countries, there are people who have, made significant improvements in this. Countries like Rwanda, like Uganda, like South Africa, like Morocco even. And from my observation, there are common denominators. And one of them is that these people have institutions that are actively involved. The ministries of gender, ministries of vulnerable groups are actively leading the reforms. And then you come to the ministries of planning and budget. They are also driving the major reforms that is happening in their countries. We can share the slides later. For the sake of time, I have less than 4 minutes now. So in Nigeria, unfortunately, we're still struggling with fragmented institutional roles, poor and inconsistent data systems, representation of marginalized voices, and our National Assembly, the statistics is there. We have, I think, out of 109, we have about 3 representing us. So therefore, if we're serious about maximizing the little resources that we have, we must ensure that they are being used in ways that count. And in conclusion, the transformation that we're looking for will happen when we decide that these missing voices, right? These missing voices will matter in the way that we are raising resources, in the way government is raising resources. Is it fair? And in the way they are spending these resources. The missing voices in Nigeria's public finance represent a massive untapped resource for national development. When we exclude women, young people, rural communities, and marginalized groups from fiscal processes, we lose access to their knowledge, insights, and innovative solutions. So the question is not whether we can afford to include these voices. It is whether we can afford to continue excluding them. Thank you. So right now, I'm going to be inviting Chika Oko, who is the Senior Program Officer on our Tax Equity Project.
Thank you very much, Lillian. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your patience. I'll be calling on the moderator and the panelists so that they can come up and we'll hit it off with the session. So I'm going to start with the moderator. As I call them up and they come up, please be clapping your hands, or we may not get the best out of them. Okay, so Razak Adewale Fatai, he's the Chief Data Officer at the Nigerian Governors Forum, where he leads the data analytics team to strengthen evidence across Nigeria's 36 states. A highly experienced development economist and strategist with more than 10 years of expertise in development finance and other sectors. Let's welcome Razak Fatai. Thank you. Madam Ugochi Ehi Ahurike that is a full one. You really have to practice to call Ugochi's name. She's a civil society representative, executive director, Social and Integral Development Center based in Anambra State, a seasoned development expert with over 14 years experience in civic engagement in diverse sectors, including tax and democratic governance. Permit me to call up Mr. Nafiu Shehu Rikadawa. He came all the way from Kanu and is the head GRM unit and special assistant to the executive chairman of Kano State Internal Revenue Service, a chartered accountant, an academic and finance professional with over 2 decades of experience in education, public service, and community development. We also have Mr. Chukwu Emeka Onyebuchi Onyemadu, and he is a feminist economist. Can we clap for him, please? I'm sure the ladies here will be very happy. He works with the UN Women and is their national economics lead under Women Economic Empowerment, with extensive expertise in research, policy advisory, and program implementation in development economics. Mr. Onyebuchi has worked in academia, research institutes, and international organizations. Finally, but not the least, we have Bilkisu Oluwakemi Olawoyin. Apologies, please. She is the Gender Desk Officer at Oyo State Primary Health Care Board, a registered nurse and a midwife, and a public health expert with over 26 years of experience in different fields, including program development, community mobilization, advocacy, etc. So please join me once again to welcome our seasoned experts to the panel. I will hand it over to the moderator. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks to IBP for the opportunity to have this important conversation. So our conversation today is about how to make Nigeria's fiscal processes more inclusive, so that women, informal workers, youth, rural communities are better represented. And they are not seen as just statistics, but active voices in shaping decisions that impact, every one of us. So I would like to start with the basics. We'll be doing a round of questions with our panelists. And then after that, we would like to also hear from you, the audience, to also hear your voice and questions for the panelists to shape this conversation. That said, let's get right to the questions, because we have just 30 minutes to have this conversation. So I'll start with Nafiu. It turns out that I have a woman next to me, but I'm starting with you. Well, maybe. So let me start with you. And, working with Kano Internal Revenue Service as a tax collector, tax collection is often seen as, government not just taking from the citizens. And from your experience, I would like to know what KIRS is doing to involve, people, women, youth, communities in budget process, so that it's not just a two-way street, one-way street, like getting from them. How are they involved in budget processes? Are they involved in monitoring what you're doing? I would like to hear that from. But more importantly, when they are concerned about equity, when they are concerned about how they are treated in tax collection, what mechanism do you have for them to, get their issues resolved?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to sit on the already established protocol. As I was introduced, I'm Nafiu Shehu Rikadawa by name. I'm the Special Assistant to the Executive Chairman, Kano Internal Revenue Service, Dr. Zaid Abakar, which we popularly refer him as the transformer, a digital guru, and a taxman. What I want to chip in this conversation is that if we are talking about including women, children, and all those groups that are not being recognized in a budget, we are talking about the functions of the government itself. And the function of governments differs from the function of the Internal Revenue Service. What Internal Revenue Service is saddled with the responsibility of doing is to introduce ways and manners in which that can ease the filing of returns by individuals and corporate bodies. If we look at it, I will start by recognizing what has been done to make that inclusive proper by the partnership with tax justice and government governance platform. I think they have made a headway in terms of how Kano will imbibe this issue of inclusion. Before this tax justice advocacy, I think the way we do things in Kano State Internal Revenue Service differs. It is issue of neglection of that set of individuals. But as at now that I'm talking to you, Kano State Internal Revenue Service has employed the services of a lot of women that are contributing immensely to the performance recorded by the current executive chairman. I think you can bear me witness that I think not just more than a week, Kano is third in the nation in terms of e-compliance of collection. And that shows you that the executive chairman is ever ready to minimize this issue of corruption and try to smoothen the way, a manner in which individuals and corporate bodies can easily file their returns. Currently at KRS, the board secretary who stands as an executive director is a woman. Unlike before, it is somebody else. And it is these agitations by this civil society. And also, the among the 6 or 7 directors of the service now, 2 are powerful women. Not just women, they are powerful women. They can do what a man cannot even think of doing in terms of delivery. So, issue of inclusion in terms of the general populace, that in Kano, when the executive chairman come into power 13th May 2024, he has this advocacy of setting a team to visit one-on-one to the marketplaces, to all these parks, that is motor parks, and other places of businesses to interact with the informal sector. Because if we look at it based on the new tax law, because it is no more to make this informal sector to be more sources of revenue by all IRS in Nigeria. Because there are a lot of limitations on what is expected to be filed in terms of corporate bodies for the minimum of their profit margins and other things. So now the focus is on informal sector. And being that a sector that is very difficult to digitalize and incorporate it in terms of electronic way, then the service employ the use of two platforms or softwares. One we call it EasyTax, and one we call it E-Road. And the E-Road specifically is taking care of the whole collections in the informal sector, while the EasyTax is taking care of the corporates and other sectors that are expected to file their returns.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a really good one. But before I move on to Ugochi, there's something I want to just check in with you very quickly. The way budget processes is set up in Kano currently, do you have a mechanism whereby even before budgets are approved, do citizens get to have a say?
Yes.
Do women?
Yes.
Do you have
Yes.
such mechanism?
Yeah, what do happen in terms of budget? This is my experience personally, not issue of Kano Internal Revenue Service, is that always there must be a public hearing in terms of how budget should, what budget should be included, and what is the expectations that the citizens have to the government, so that all these their interests will be taken care of.
Okay. Then very quickly, my last question is, we've talked about the budget leg. In implementation...
Budget what?
We've talked about the budget leg, the process for planning. In the course of implementation, do you also have a mechanism for them to say, oh, you said you build a road, you did not build it, or you've not done so well in this aspect? Is there such?
I think personally I have this worried in my mind in regards to the new tax laws. Honestly, that is part of the main shortcomings. We, let's say, citizens or taxpayers contribute their money to the government. But the law does not specify or specifically state that these taxpayers have the right to dictate or to state how their funds should be allocated or even spent. It only gave them some certain chances to advise or say their minds, but then not given the mandate that they must be consulted before utilizing such generated funds.
All right, thank you. I think I've gotten the message, and I'm sure the audience they've gotten the message and they had their question. So I'll turn to Ugochi because of time, and I would like for us to keep our intervention short. For you, as a civil society leader, you act as a bridge between communities and government, and sometimes you have consultations with government on budget, or, changes you want to see, but sometimes that doesn't translate to real change. But also from your experience, I'm sure you know what works. You've had some engagement, there are some things you've done that have actually worked. So I'd like to hear from you, what are those things that you've done or strategies that you've done to ensure that community concerns are factored into budget decisions, but also, what do you think we can do to ensure that CSOs are able to keep pushing for accountability and still make sure women and communities' voices remain central in budget decisions?
All right, thank you so very much. Please permit me to sit on existing protocols. All right, so the first thing is to promote inclusive community-led participatory budgeting. You know, ensuring that community needs, that priorities are captured in the state budget. That's what we've done differently, working with IBP support. I'll be using Anambra State, for instance, because I know at subnational level, other states are already promoting that. But the point is that to what extent is it really coming out at the end of the approved budget? I know of some states that also have forums or forums where citizens participate to ensure that they submit what we call charters of demand. In some states, they call it a citizens' budget. However, we also need to know. Today we have program on a gender summit. So what we've done differently working with IBP is we are in gender and intersectionality lens. That's why I talked about inclusive, community-led participatory approach. Over the years, when you call communities to submit what we call charters of demand, 2 or 3 people will come together to develop the needs of the entire communities and submit on behalf of the community, because they were looking for funds from World Bank as a result of IPSAS for some of us that followed the budget strength of subnational states. However, what we did differently is to ensure we develop what we call the identity markers. Identity markers, we are looking at the single mothers, single ladies, the women farmers, artisan women, women traders in the major markets, and the divorcee. Yes, we will try to wear that gender and intersectionality lens, ensuring even person with disability, that people are being carried along, that the budget process is so participatory. Not just stopping at community level where you have, even at ward level, when things are shared, they are shared to political party, patron, you know, those that supported them before they won the election. So what we did differently, a strategy that has worked for us, and we are working towards consolidating on those gains, is promoting inclusive, community-led, participatory budget approach. Then again is evidence-based budget advocacy to translate community concerns are being budgeted. Yes, sometimes we've had opportunity to participate in budget forums where citizens' concerns and needs are submitted. However, at the tail end, you now see that some of those needs are not really being approved when Mr. Governor approves the state's budget. So what we did differently at CSO is to, we now went back to the community to do what we call, develop what we call charters of demand that is so inclusive, by ensuring that the already identified identity markers that we're working with are all seated, and they develop participatory community charters of demand that were submitted. Then we have coalition building. One thing I know as a result of my intervention is that no single organization can achieve a result or make a change. So we need to work with other actors of the same interest to achieve. That's why when we are also doing our reporting, you see yourself writing and prevent tokenism, because in some places CSOs are being invited. At the end of the day, you'll be given a peanut for you. You are opportune to sit in a place where commissioners, some ESCOs come to defend, to present and defend their budget envelope as a result of core circulars released to different MDAs. Some CSOs are there, and they are being given some token at the end of the year. Some also working so hard to be in that same forum. But now, we've said no. This will not really address the change we all want to see. We've moved beyond seeing it as a way of a token. I've come, I've sat down for 2-3 days, and you're giving me this. So that's one thing we've done. There was also push for institutionalized mechanisms where citizens where citizens participate. For instance, at subnational level, I'll use on Anambra also. I also know it happens in other states. we have what we call budget forum, where MDAs come to present their budget envelope for the year. And we are there to also ensure that things that revolves around gender are being captured. Just like what the minister said today, that 21 states have been able to develop gender budget. Yes, it's also happening in some of the states where we work in. We now have a budget line for GBV. GBVs are things that resonate as a result of our engagement.
Sorry, please, what's GBV for the sake of the audience?
All right, gender-based violence.
Okay.
So people pay out of pocket to address issues that revolves around gender-based violence. Even when it comes to witnesses, people also struggle with what it takes.
All right, so we would have to move on to the next panelist because of time. I've been getting, several warnings that we need to wrap this up. So for the next panelist, please keep your intervention short, maybe 2 minutes max, because of time. So I'll call on Chukwemeka, the economist in the house. So for you, it's just for you to share experience based on, you working at a global level, the UN women working at a global level, to help draw lessons that we think would help us ensure that, women, youths are better, engaged in budget processes. So what are your thoughts for how to move forward?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if my intervention will be in 2 minutes, because you've asked the question that I may have to first provide some basis before we talk about global best practices. You know that the budget is actually planned expenditure. It's not the real expenditure. It is just planned. It is the government saying, this is where our priorities lie. But what is very important in the budget is that the budget is also a development tool that helps to highlight specific social problems that the government wants to address. And if that is true, it then follows that before we budget, we must plan. And this is something that doesn't come out very strongly when we start discussing about the budget as a development tool. If you don't plan, you can't effectively have credible budget. And that is a fact. What we are doing now, as UN Women, is to see how we can support governments across, globally, as well as across the West and Central African region, to ensure that gender-responsive planning is the precursor to gender-responsive planning and budgeting. Very important, because if we agree that the budget is a development tool, if we agree that the budget can be used as a reflection of government's priorities to solve social problems, then we must first plan and have a very good idea of what those social problems are and what we should invest in to address those problems. As Medium Development Plans, what we are beginning to see is how to first, using a gender lens, integrate gender-sensitive indicators within those development plans. So currently, for example, in Nigeria, the National Development Plan is ending already in 2025. A successor plan is being worked on by the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. And we are beginning to have that first discussion on how do we prioritize gender within the framework of the new development plan. One strand of, and one important strand is that we have medium-term development plans like the MTEP, that's the medium-term expenditure framework, which is a 3-year rolling plan that helps gives estimates for the budgets. We need to begin to integrate and marry macroeconomic indexes with gender that will now fit squarely in the MTEF. I can give you an example. I don't rush. This is very important. It's very important because we have to have this discussion if we have to have the discussion. It's very important because Nigeria is beginning to prepare a new plan. What we saw in the last plan was that gender was a mention. And if gender is a mention in the last plan, we cannot budget for gender in the next 5 years. Now the ministry is very, very intentional, Ministry of Budget and Planning, as well as the Ministry of Women Affairs, to ensure that gender is not a mention, but mainstreamed across all the priority sectors, and also having a standalone section in the new National Development Plan. Let me now to your question of best practices. One of them is to have what we call a budget identifier. If you look at the Nigerian budget, and I said if you look at, because I know many people have not seen the Nigerian budget. Many people have not seen it. The budget has numbers. For every capital line items you see, it has numbers. And those numbers mean something. What we are saying and we are discussing with the government is, can we have numbers that help target, help to identify specific line items that have been included in the budget that are strictly, I use strictly, gender line items. And I hear this a lot by politicians. We built a road, are women not using the road? That you build a road does not necessarily, don't stop me, I will threaten you. That you build a road does not necessarily, give me 1 minute on our end.
I have to stop. To be honest, I think you've made some really good point that we can build on later. I'm sure our audience also have questions for you. So let me go to Oluwakemi. You know, you're from Oyo, which is my favorite place. Yeah. And well, I'd just like to hear from you, in your view, how can fiscal decision making be open so that rural women and other excluded groups don't just give input, but actually shape allocation? And what practical reforms would you recommend, you know, for your desk to ensure that budget decisions in states are truly reflective of women, youth, and other vulnerable people's participation? In 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, the moderator. As I was introduced, my name is Baliki Oluwakemi Olaoye, and I'm here all the way from Oyo State, the Paystar State. Actually, by my own definition, budget is aggregate cost of activity that are meant to address the needs of the populace. If you are talking about the needs of the populace, it has to touch everybody in the grassroots. I'm bold to say that we have so many excluded, population and groups. The population that we talk about, they are of different groups. Few have been mentioned. We have the adolescents, we have the divorcees, we have the widows. We have the poor that you don't need to ask that person whether you are poor or not. It is well written. When we consider the technology advancement, the adolescent, the youth, can fit into it. But we have so many people out there that cannot even afford, the smallest telephone, talk less of operating it. And because they live in the remotest areas, they lack or they don't have that required link with governance for a very long time. Because of this, they have lost hope and trust in government's initiative. I know government is trying now, right? Different strategies, different interventions. But let us ask ourselves, do the needy really get the benefits? So with this, I may be bold to say that the excluded groups and population, we need to strategize how their voices, how their needs will be accommodated in our budgets. How can we do that? We have some traditional existing structures and institutions that these people believe in and can be leveraged upon. Some also need to be changed. Let me cite an example. We have our traditional institutions. We have our custodians of cultures that really put these people at disadvantage. I think we can leverage by building the capacity of those traditional institutions, letting them know that the voices of these less privileged are so important to transform our society. There are several community committees. We have village development committees, which are often dominated by men. Can't we include these less privileged people, the excluded people? We can even institute a kind of, I don't want to call it parallel, complementary committees that will have its members that basically the people that are excluded, that have been, historically. We also have our ward development committees. We can have, substantive number of people that have been historically excluded in the budget. And again, budget planning, budget development shouldn't be a kind of short-term process. It should be a kind of continuous process. If you make it a continuous process, we now have to institute a system or structure can, pass information, to the people that will compile at the end of the day.
Thank you very much for the brilliant contributions. So I think I'll turn to the audience. Maybe just two questions. The lady in front and the guy at the back. Just two of you, very quickly, in 10 seconds. I'm sorry I'll disappoint you. The lady in front and the other lady in front. Just the two of you. Thank you. So this is Women's Day, so please, the men, please just take a back seat.
Thank you very much to the speakers. My name is Dr. Basira Razak Shuaib. I partner with organizations to unlock inclusive education, women's mental well-being, and women's leadership through research, policy influence, and strategic advocacy. Now, I'm not asking a question. I'm giving something back to the people who have spoken today. You all in your different capacities have direct interaction with policymakers. Some of you are policymakers or pseudo policymakers, like the man from Kano State. What I want to say to you is the approach that we follow when we talk. Ugochi spoke about intersectionality. When we want to address women, we budget for women. We treat these issues like they are siloed. We forget that the woman who is poor is also the woman. These markers, these social markers of exclusion cut across for many of these women, yet we approach these issues in a siloed way. We are looking to go and solve single women's problem. Then we're looking to solve people with disabilities problem. the unfortunate thing is there's an ordering that happens, right? Budgeting doesn't happen outside of the political economy. He said it. The fact that people come and say this is how we want to talk to your principals or the people that you're engaging with, those are the things that we want you to take up with them. And then the last thing has to do with multi-sectoral budgeting, where something is budgeted under one MDA or one government office, and they refuse to treat it under another office. So when you say gender, they expect that you would only find it in Ministry of Women and Social Affairs, and they will refuse to treat it anywhere else. Or disability. We need that multi-sectoral thing to happen in budgeting. Otherwise, all of these issues will come, we'll talk, it will get left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lois Auta. Dr. Chukwuemeka, glad to see you. Yes, I want to talk about women with disabilities who are triple jeopardized when it comes to budgeting. With over 30 million persons with disabilities in Nigeria, women faces a lot of challenges, difficulties, and problems. Being a woman with disability, and the barriers that she faces, which could be infrastructural, attitudinal, and institutional. On this topic, very important topic we're discussing, how can we ensure that a budget line is reserved for women with disabilities? Because according to IBP Open Budget Survey, less than 5% of persons with disabilities are included in our budget systems. And over 90% of government social protection schemes, like cash transfers, credit facilities, we are excluded. Persons with disabilities face 87% multidimensional poverty versus 66% for those without disabilities, according to Disability Data Initiative. NBS, I can go on and on the statistics on how persons with disabilities are excluded on our fiscal and public finance activities. The question is, what is the solution? Persons with disabilities are facing a lot. We are the poorest of the poor. What is the solution in ensuring we are included in federal and state budgeting? Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Good afternoon. My name is Abdullah Musaibi from Transparency and Accountability in Totality Initiative. Follow taxes. First of all, I want to agitate. My Oga here, Shehu, did not mention us. He made mention of Tax Justice Network and platform governance. He didn't mention follow taxes. We are the one who invited Tax Justice Network to Kano State for what you are doing. Not only Kano and Taraba State. Just recently, I came back from Taraba State. We tried to call all the more than 25 women from all the 16 local government, market women, so that we try to create a GRM, grievance response mechanism, to Kano and Taraba State. Yes, we make sure that these people meet with Taraba State chairman of Internal Revenue Service. We make sure that they share their grievances, they share their this thing with the chairman himself, not us. So also IBP. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Any other question?
Wow, good day everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Chimaine Sokoli and I'm a gender specialist and programs manager. One very important things I want to ask, especially for my sister here in Anambra State and Ogan nephew and ma'am also, how do young people, especially PWDs, how would you advise that we begin to organize ourselves? Because we understand critically that the government cannot really pick everyone as an individual, and we are being told that, oh, come together, form coalitions and all of that. This is 2025, a lot of things have happened. How can young people, PWDs, and the like, how can we begin to lump ourselves together to ensure that our voices are heard? Because Africa has a very interesting young population, and it's very important that we begin to social engineer ourselves. Thank you.
I would like to turn to Ugochi first. I know you hate me, but it's okay. So I'd like you to respond to the question on the budget line, how to ensure budget line is reserved for people with disabilities, and then maybe just any other thing you want to add in like a minute. Thank you. That's you, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Chukemeka, sorry.
Okay.
Then I'll come back to Ugochi. Maybe when you speak in a minute.
Okay.
Ugochi will talk about how to organize PWDs. Yeah.
You know, you didn't allow me to land the first time.
Apologies.
Let me make that very clear, and Madam Yika, I'll make my case to you later. Gender responsive budgeting is beyond keeping special budget line items for women. That is not really what it is. What we want to achieve through gender responsive planning and budgeting is to ensure that the needs of both men, women, boys, and girls are recognized in the budget. And even on how we raise revenues for the budget. That is what gender responsive planning and budgeting targets. For example, when we go to the north, and we have the problem of completion rates in junior secondary school. We see it's an adolescent girl problem. But when we go to the southeast, we see it's a boys problem. So it's not keeping special reserve funding in the budget for women. That's not what gender responsive. In fact, if you do that, a lot of backlash from policymakers. They will disagree with you. We are taking a different approach. There needs to be first a framing and understanding what is gender responsive budgeting in the context of Nigeria's public financing mechanism, management framework. What does it mean? We are currently doing that with the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. And I cannot overemphasize. Everything, all the questions that have been asked today is a planning question, not a budgeting question. It's a planning question. For example, what data do we have on persons with disability? How many are they? What are the demographics for persons with disabilities? By income? By age? Do we have that? If you don't have that, then how do you put money for persons with disability? What the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning is doing now, and this is, I think, is a fantastic approach, is to be very heavy on the plan. And that data, that research, that evidence that is put inside the plan will influence what we budget for. And that brings me to the question of how do we get sector-specific data? And this is what your question is saying. In developing the National Development Plan, the new National Development Plan, committees are being set up that cut across all demographics and all sectors. So we have one for gender, we have one for persons with disability, we have one for young persons. when we come together, we must insist, because whatever is done in that committee is what will be featured in the National Development Plan. You cannot budget when you don't plan. If you do that, you will not have credible budgets.
Thank you. Please, very quickly, Gucci.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for the opportunity and the question. Maybe I'll just start with the PWDs and their own request. For instance, in Anambra State, we just had a campaign we called Able to Vote. Maybe you're aware of it. It will shock you the number of PWDs that came out for that program. You will see that I call them state of their own. They have the number, they have the data. I think what is missing here is engaging different MDAs with the data available. In Anambra State, based on what we are doing with IBP, we are supporting Ministry of Agriculture to develop and generate data of women farmers. In fact, they are calling us to share our findings based on the survey with them to inform their policies and programming in Ministry of Agriculture. We are also doing the same in Ministry of Health. As I'm talking to you now, we have small-scale women farmers, Organization of Nigeria. They are in Anambra right now developing what we call charters of demand. We've engaged the state, Ministry of Economic Budget and Planning. They've refused to have a budget line for small-scale women farmers. They said we can have a budget line for women farmers, and we say we are good with that. How do we get groups begin to demand for accountability? That was this question, organize and ensure that they are receiving dividends of democracy. That is what we are currently doing now. The women farmers now develop what we call charters of demand. In the past, the states gave us, as of last year, in fact, the government gave it to me to share with women, our women farmers, oil palm, coconuts, you know, to empower those women farmers. But for us, we said, these are not gender-friendly crops for women. And we came up with what we need. Today, we are improving on what we developed last year between IBP and CSJ as their technical partners in Anambra State. So these are things, end of the day, it will not get to these women farmers who are real-time farmers. They will share it to political farmers. And we've said, no, we don't want this again. We have real-time farmers, and real-time farmers ensure that you are with us as small-scale women farmers. Then it will shock you that in the history of the states, no woman has ever emerged as the chairman of a market leadership. But this time around, as at 2 months ago, based on our engagement to 158 structured markets, we now have women leaders, and we said no, we don't want to stop at women leadership. That is tokenism for us. You are just bringing us to serve you colas. We want women to vie for elective position, so that our voice, we are not just campaigning for our voices to be heard. We want it to be seen and felt. How can we get youth better organized? We have that platform. The only thing is to ensure that when decisions are taken, no government can cite and implement projects that are not being budgeted. How well are they representing you when that opportunity calls? For my state, they will call representative of youth, men, female. How are they represent? Do they really give feedback? Are they really representing for their own personal interests, so that government can contract them with some contracts? So these are the kind of things that the youth angles. So what we are doing now, beyond these things, like watch the question and things you raise, we have women, we call women of resilience group. These women of resilience group, they are survivors. Hello, they are survivors, because a lot of women who've seen shege, and we say no to those things, and we want to have our own agency. Hello, we want to have an agency that speaks for the interests of that single mothers out there, that widows out there, divorcee out there, and single girl outside. It shocked you that one of my comment people sent me a report of 14.
Madam Ugochi, I think we need to stop at
this one is so, wait. This 14-year-old girl yesterday 14-year-old girl with disability that gave birth to a baby boy. Kai, who will advocate for her? That's why we need our agency. So I begin to advocate for such people. Thank you.
Please, let's clap for the panelists once again.
Please, we need to 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Sorry, I think the third person that asked question, he talked about recognition, and it is very important, honestly. Fellow taxes, Action Aids, CISLAC, a lot of them are partners in Kano States in terms of how we address grievance redress mechanisms. I think on the 29th of July that he was talking about, Taraba and Lagos were in Kano to have an insight on how we address our grievance redress mechanisms in terms of e-formats and the way we do things. And I think Kano is part of, or it is even the leading in terms of grievance redress mechanism. The last person that she was trying to address this issue, I think if I said I am even very close to the youth, or I am even a youth, I will ask you one question. Do you know the current executive chairman, Kano Internal Revenue Service? I think he is somebody just at his 40 now. And he was the executive chairman, Kaduna State Internal Revenue Service, for 4 years, before now in Kano. He was the executive chairman of Kaduna State Internal Revenue Service at the age of 35. 3 billion naira a year as in generation of Kaduna States, which it had never been. And currently in Kano State, when he assumed office, as I said, 13 November 2024, the collections per month is not more than 2.5 billion, but as I'm talking to you now, it's more than 8 billion, about 9 billion naira. A youth. It is issue of what we are able to do. Let's not be allowed ourselves to be just seen as social media propagandas, doing whatsoever nonsense. Let us sit up and do what is expected of us and have leaders that are ready to mentor us so that we can reach where we want. And
thank you, sir. Please, can we put a round of applause for him?
Please, sir, I want to lend my voice.
Thank you very much.
Sir, I want to lend my voice to how people with disabilities voices can be heard. By sharing Oyo State, experience. As we speak, we have an agency for people living with disability. And I think it was due to the agitation and pressure by the group. It is, headed by Barrister Adekombi. So I think other states can emulate. By so doing, your voice can be heard. And in addition to the question raised by the youth, please, I want to plead with us. You are part of your community. Don't be far away. Our aged people, parents back there, they don't know as we know. They do not know the channels. They don't know how to go about it. Please be part of it so that all our interventions can be community-driven and led. So if you are able to do that, you are part of the community, and we also have Ministry of Youth, which you can also, leverage upon to let your voices be heard. Don't let us be far away from our grassroots. We need you people. Thank you very much.
That was a brilliant intervention by all the panelists. Please, let's clap for them once again. So I would just like to summarize for next steps. And I would like to start with Chukwuemeka's point on planning, which is very critical, which means we have to be very deliberate as a country, as subnationals, to make sure that in the planning process, medium-term plans and whatever, we need to be deliberate in how we incorporate, to have a budget, to have a plan that's inclusive, but also strategies that to ensure that they are involved in all the process across the board. But more importantly, the point around multi-sectoral, the fact that gender issue, inclusion is multi-sectoral. It's not about just creating budget line for women. It's about, in agriculture, what are women's needs, around productivity, capacity needs. In health, how do you better educate young women to make sure that they are not left behind? So I think it's really about multi-sectorality and not just budget line. That's one critical point. There was also the point on Charter of Demand made by Madam Kochi, which I think is very critical. As citizens, we must be able to organize ourselves to be able to state this is our demand, even before the budget processes start. And then Madam Kemi talked about the importance of traditional rulers and all these existing institutions, which I think we need to leverage efficiently to be able to, stay connected more with people. And then Mr. Nafiu talked a lot about how, revenue generation should be done in a way that it's really inclusive and involves people with clear-cut, plans and laws that we can really leverage on. With that said, I would just like to wrap up with what we're doing at the Nigeria Governors Forum. I'm sure some of you will be wondering, because on my own side, at Nigeria Governors Forum, we work with subnationals, states, to kind of provide support to help them domesticate and institutionalize policies around women economic policy framework, which is commonly called WE. I'm sure some of you might be familiar with women economic empowerment policy. So we've been working with states to domesticate that policies, provide technical support to ensure that women are better supported. But I think more importantly, from what this conversation is, it's not just about women, it's really about inclusion across all levels, youth. And I think we can do much more in that regard. And I would like to say that, what would it take to actually, or what are some of the things we need to do going forward? And one key point I would like to add is that we need strong political will, because when political will is strong at the highest level, it also helps to ensure that these policies, these plans, come to fruition, and that people at the technical level will also take it serious when there is that strong political signal. And also we need sustained leadership, beyond, one governor will come, people will come and go. We need to make sure we put in place mechanism to ensure that whatever we've had, whatever we plan to do, are done sustained. But more importantly, I think capacity building will also be a very critical thing, particularly to make sure that we're not just generating data, equity-based data or evidence, but making sure that it's reflected in how we budget and how we engage with people across the entire value chain of fiscal processes, from planning to implementation. And so that said, in the end, the real test is not whether we collect data on gender or we do gender disaggregated, whatever. It's really about making sure that the entire budget cycle, fiscal process, from design, Chukwuemeka talked about, to implementation, to monitoring, which really revolved around making sure that we're getting results. We need to make sure the entire process is watertight, and we need to make sure that we are deliberate in including people. And that is how, at the national, subnational level, we can ensure that equity and inclusion are not just afterthoughts, but the very DNA of fiscal governance. So I would like to stop here and say that the conversation will continue from here. It's not going to stop here. I'm sure that we would all have to, at some point continue to talk and see how we make sure that Nigeria is better for everyone. Lastly, there's an announcement I have to make, particularly with regards to this session. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this session. Please take a moment to provide your feedback using any of the following options. There is a QR code given to you by some research assistants, which would love you to scan and give feedback. You can also use the digital screen in the foyer, but also you can use the research assistant tablet if there's anyone close to you to provide feedback on this session. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, then social media platform for IBP Nigeria. I think we would love to see you go online to tag, what you've learned from this session. What are the key takeaways? And please tag IBP, whether on Twitter, Instagram, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you very much. I wish you fruitful deliberations as this gender summit proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panel. Please, can we put our hands together for the panel? Thank you, and thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We are calling for group photograph. Group photograph. We have the CITN Vice President. Please join the group photograph. Mr. Rafsanjani, please join the podium for group photograph. Thank you. Yes. Please, group photograph. Group photograph. Yes, please. No, please go ahead. Not just the speakers, yes. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We have a lost but found item. I think it's a bangle. A bangle lost and found. Okay. Please remember to follow us on our social media handles, internationalbudgetpartnership.org. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter.